Perfect.
Good. All right. Well, look, good evening, everyone. And it's fantastic to see everyone tonight. Amidst all, obviously, of the European competition and everything else is going on in the UK, which we won't say anything about. But it's such a great pleasure to have you on, Donal, this evening. And I think this is just going to be such a fascinating call. And I think, the thing I think that people are going to find so interesting tonight, but we're going to talk about this as we go on, is the fact that there you are, a PMD, and you're doing the Juice Plus business completely part-time. And I think people are going to find that absolutely fascinating. So what we're going to do is we're going to start the call now, and we are recording. And we're going to ask some questions, which you know what I'm going to ask, hopefully. And then at 9 o'clock, we're going to then open it up for questions. But what we're not going to do is get everybody to scream out their question. So if you've got any particular questions that come up as we go through this conversation, everyone, if you would just put them on the chat box down the bottom, and I'll do my best to go through them and ask Donal these particular questions. And they can be edited, obviously, to make sure that they're good questions. But we'll do our best to ask, all the questions that people ask. So, Donal, here we go. Now, I just imagine, are you parked up looking out over the sea?
No, I'm not. No, I've literally pulled up outside of the house, but at the risk of waking two children and having an angry wife, I said this is probably the safest place for me.
That's good. Yeah, that's right. Tranquility. Okay. Yeah. Well, look, we know that obviously your father is Damien, and already been very successful in the Juice Plus business. So you grew up in a sense with Juice Plus in the household.
Yeah.
How was that? What was your experience initially with Juice Plus?
Yeah, well, for about maybe 12 or 14 or 15 years or something around that, we've been taking Juice Plus before I joined the business. So, but to be honest with you, it was just something, that Mammy and Daddy were doing and that we took and didn't give it a whole pile of thought. So I was probably taking Juice Plus for maybe 10 or 12 years without really giving it that much thought at all. Of course, back then the business was very different. I remember boxes of Juice Plus being stacked up in the room and taking credit card payments and so on. So it looked like any normal, traditional business, and I didn't give it a whole pile of thought. We used to go to presentations now and then whenever, they were on if we were free, and, realised that, the great message that Juice Plus has. But again, we weren't hugely involved in terms of actually helping mum and dad build a business. But so, and to be honest, it went on for years and years, and I never really got to understand the business that well until maybe later on, until I was working in finance myself, and then started to become a little more interested. But I think for the first 12 or 14 years, we just took Juice Plus. There's 8 of us in the house, so I probably sorted out half of the PB, and that's the way we went on. So it just became something that we grew up with, really.
Yeah, and your parents have always been very entrepreneurial, haven't they? And they'd had numerous other businesses. So did you think sometimes, what on earth are they up to, or was it was just normal for them to be doing all this stuff?
Yeah, well, no, it was not. It was normal because it was just another thing. Yeah, because we had a manufacturing business. We also had we had a farm, which I don't know if that's very entrepreneurial or just a very expensive hobby in Leitrim, but it's and then there was other things, but they were constantly going to conferences, and I very clearly remember at least all the European conferences they went to them, and the same names were always being mentioned in the house over and over again, and we'd hear stories of different people who now have become household names all over the world probably, but and so we were aware of it from that point of view, but again we just thought it was just another business, I guess, that they were involved in.
So what was it that got you? Obviously there you are, growing up with Juice Plus, but suddenly it sort of really became very interesting for you. What was it that really prompted you to say, right, this is it, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, I think for probably maybe a year before I was involved, I was I had more and more conversations, in particular with Daddy, about it. So I think that was his way of kind of not pushing it on me, but at the same time making me a bit more aware of it. But for me, I'd moved from Dublin to Belfast. While I was in Dublin, I was working in finance, but I was involved in a number of startup businesses for myself and other people, first of all. And then when I moved to Belfast, I was involved in 2 or 3 different startups. So I love the idea. I love business. I love everything about it, and in particular starting up businesses and helping people get started in that whole cut and thrust of cash flow and all of those sort of things. But having done it a few times with different people, you realize how hard it was. But I always wanted my own business and be able to build my own. But time was very much an issue. But having understood how hard it is to get businesses up and running well and being successful, that was always going to be a difficulty for me. But and then lo and behold, for all of the difficulties that's involved, Juice Plus doesn't have any of those, and I never really realized it, and I kind of just stumbled on it more than anything else through those conversations with my dad, which he probably looking from the outside in and realizing this was tailor made for me, but he needed to wait until the timing was right, I guess, more than anything.
Yeah. So then you got going, and things really started picking up pace pretty quickly. What contributed to that? What was it that you were doing that was really getting so many great results?
Yeah, well, I had a bit of a slow start at the beginning, but I guess when I look back on it now, the things that attracted me to the business was first and foremost was definitely the recurring revenue element of it. That was something that really, really attracted me to it, and that if you worked hard at the beginning and you get good customer service, that you would be paid for a long time on those recurring customers, and you aren't starting at zero every month. So that element of it, along with the potential in terms of what you could earn, along with helping other people start businesses, that's what attracted me. But the difficulty I had was, I think, coming from a household or a successful household in Juice Plus has its huge advantages, but it also has its disadvantages. And I assumed I knew everything about the business, and whereby I knew everything from the point of view of the marketing plan and the percentages and a lot of stuff that now we know actually isn't very important to know at all, because it's all taken care of. I knew all of that inside out, and I was taking a very business approach at first. And to be honest, I didn't have very much success, because I was talking very big figures with people. I was talking about it in a very business-like manner. I was presenting it in a very business-like manner, and I didn't have a whole pile of success. I certainly attracted a lot of people to the business, but then I struggled to get them success, because I think I was complicating it a little too much. But in terms of when it moved, when it started to move for me, it then moved very, very quickly once I learned, to keep it simple and so on. And the big change for me was the launch of the Be Independent bonus program. Literally changed everything overnight, or over the space of that couple of hours in Munich when it was announced. Because once I seen the figures go up, all of my reluctance to get out and build it the way you probably should left, because of the huge opportunity. When I seen those bonuses, it really, really got me excited. And I remember being in Munich, and I took a blank sheet of paper. I handed it over to my dad, who was about 2 or 3 spaces over from me in the conference, and I said, tell me how to do it. And he drew SDD on the sheet, and he put a circle around it. He handed it back, and he said, just help as many people get to there as you can. So, in terms of when it started to work for me, what were we doing? Got away from looking for people who wanted to earn 100,000 per year, and got out to looking for people who wanted to earn 500 per month. And that was the Be Independent program. Getting to SDD, you were going to earn between 500 and 600, and just focused on that. And all of a sudden, that simplicity and delivering results very quickly for people meant that the whole thing took off quickly, and we took it from there. But yeah, that was the first proper movement I got. But once it started to move, it just completely snowballed from there.
I mean, obviously you are, I know that you're a very business-minded person, and there you are, you work in finance, and you obviously have a big career that you're pursuing as well in finance. Was it very difficult to get away from just talking to people from a very business standpoint? How did you manage to make that shift?
I think the problem with it was I wasn't comfortable. I was coming from a background of working in finance, whereby at that time, especially, I was in an office on my own. With I often say to people, there was no door. There was a door, obviously, but there was no window in the door, and there was no window to the outside. So it was a stereotypical accountant's type office, and I didn't see a lot of people, and I'm naturally quite shy and quiet anyway. So the shift for me had to be in my attitude towards it and my approach to it, as opposed to that I was finding the wrong people. It was certainly the issue was with me. And so once my big challenge to get over was to get outside of my comfort zone and get out meeting people and get out talking to people and form relationships. And so really that was it. It wasn't so much that I needed to find different people. It was just that I needed to change. And so once I did and started to do that a little bit, well, then I got more comfortable, and then realized that actually you don't need a 15 slide deck to explain to somebody the whole thing about the business. What you need is to sit down and connect with them. And I just got better at it as I went along. But it was certainly a shift for me. Yeah.
No, I like that. That's brilliant. So obviously very busy. You've got your career going on and working in finance. Tell us a little bit about your daily method of operation. So what did you find that you ought to be doing on a daily basis to really move things along?
Yeah, again, I think that what's quite good is that once you start to move the business forward, and in our case it was focused on STDs, you do get quite busy quite quickly. But that's a very, very good thing, because when you're busy with other things as well, whether that's your job or your family or whatever it happens to be, I think it's a huge advantage to be busy, because then you're forced to prioritize. And what I find still is that if I have a to-do list, but I've lots of time to do it, I get very little of it done, or I don't get the important things done, because you tend to be easy on yourself and take the easy ones first. Whereby if you've got a to-do list and you don't have a lot of time, you're forced to prioritize. And so all we prioritized was, or certainly what I did when I was in the office, was I prioritized that my lunch break was where I could connect with all the team members and so on. I did a lot of one-to-ones at lunch. I then started to, I started to replace the overtime I was doing in the office. That wasn't forced upon me. I used to do it because I wanted to do it. I started to force myself to leave the office at a proper time, but not swap the hours I was doing. So I would do Juice Plus in the evening, but I was always focused on business building at that time, because I didn't have any other time to get distracted with other things like, thinking too much about stuff. So it was always about either talking to distributors or talking to customers. And so the daily method of operation, if you like, I nearly kind of just stumbled upon it out of necessity. But the big thing was, every single thing you do, was that going to progress your business? And if it wasn't, well, then it went to the bottom of the list, really. And then, as we all know, you never get to the bottom of the list. So the unimportant stuff just didn't get done. And good. But I do think that, there'll be several people on the call. There's several people talking to potential distributors who talk about time not being an issue and so on. It really, really isn't, because it's just a matter of things. And it doesn't take long to connect with people if you make that your priority, so that's really what it was. It wasn't something I sat down and developed. I kind of stumbled upon it out of necessity more than anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds very exciting, because you were really connecting with people and obviously getting close with people. So tell us a little bit, Donal, about how you found your team members, because a lot of people will say, well, oh yeah, look, I'm doing really well. I can get loads of customers and things are really moving along that respect. But where did your team members come from? Because obviously you've built a very good team, and I've met some of your people, and they are fantastic people. And I can see you've got a real connection with them. Where did they come from?
Yeah, again, in terms of getting started out, I wasn't very active on social media. I'm still only marginally active on it, I guess. So it really was for me about getting out and about and meeting as many people as I could. And again, it was probably something, again, I was quite lucky in the sense that when I first started my Juice Plus business, I literally didn't know anybody in Belfast. I'd only recently moved there, and the only person I knew was my boss. So, as I always say, the least amount of time I spent with him, the better. So I really didn't know anybody, and so it was again out of real necessity when I went to meet people that I had to go and ask people for help and say, who would you know that would be interested in this? And so referrals became my big uh, uh, pool, we'll say, of how to get in front of people. And I always focused very much on the business and found that when you were presenting the business, you were coming across customers anyway. So in the early stages, all of my team members came from pretty much referrals and what I found, and then looking just for any opportunity to bring it up in conversations and things like that. But what I found was that those opportunities are everywhere once you're focused on finding people who want to earn 500 per month, because that interests absolutely everybody. So if really, if I look back on where I had my first success with my first successful team member, it was through a guy at work. I asked him, would he give me a hand? I was doing something new and I needed new people. He was a salesperson. He knew a lot of people. He introduced me to somebody who then introduced me to somebody else. And I can trace it right down through 6 different people. And I ended up with Kieran Kelly, who many people will know from the UK conferences. And, that came from 6 referrals, if you like. Some of them joined the business, but have very quickly introduced somebody else. And he was my first real, franchisee that was of the same mindset. And he went on to build one of the biggest businesses in Ireland. So my focus always was and still is and probably always will be on just getting out and meeting people. And that's what works for me,
Did you feel like he got it straight away when you spoke to him, Kieran? Or was there a little bit of a process of having to really talk to him quite a lot? Or did you feel like you met a kindred spirit very, very quickly in him?
Yeah, absolutely. The first day I met by a friend of his to meet me, and he had flapjacks that he had made himself, and his granny was put them into a cafe for him, and he was telling me the margin he was making on them. And I remember instantly saying, "This is the guy for me," because he clearly was going to be able to see the business potential in it. And in the early stages, we talked an awful lot about the whole marketing plan and everything. Kieran's a very intelligent guy. He wanted to know everything about it, but he also understood very, very quickly that it was good to know it, but he didn't need to understand it and he wanted it. And he was the first person I found that I was able to teach the system to, and they got success pretty quickly. And his personality, for anybody that knows him, you'll know that getting out and about and meeting people and so on. And in that regard, he was the first person I met that wanted to, or was willing to do the business or build a business in the way that I was building it. So we became more like partners than anything else, and it kind of took off from there. So both of us struggled at the beginning, but we at least kind of had each other. And then once we got focused on just looking for people again at that 500 a month time, it's no surprise that my business took off and his took off, and vice versa.
And when you got going with him, Donal, I mean, a lot of, some people say, well, look, I've got someone now, but I don't know what to do to get them going. So what were you saying to Kieran? What did you say to him? He must have said to you, well, look, Donal, what am I going to do with this? And you must have said, well, look, Kieran, you need to do this and this and this. And what did you tell him to get him going?
Well, the big thing was he was already taking the product himself anyway, and he was a raving fan of the product. So that part was easy, and getting him to just get out and talk to people. So we did, as you probably know, in Ireland, we focus a lot on in-homes. So we did those, but what I found was, in-homes were, males in particular found them difficult to do because they were a little like the old Tupperware parties or something like that. So we just called them launch nights, and it was really just that simple. It kind of fell into place easy enough that inviting a few friends around and I know that he did one in Donegal on a family weekend where all of his aunts and uncles were together. So again, a kind of the system that we then followed from then on, we kind of just, it kind of fell into place for him more than anything else. And then we kind of applied that across the whole team. It wasn't something that we created. It was already there, and we just happened to be doing it by chance anyway. And every time we strayed away from that, we didn't have success. But as we started to bring people in, we then realized that, focusing on business wasn't exciting. So keeping it all about excitement and bringing people together. So we ran a weekly training, I suppose, in inverted commas, which wasn't really billed as a training session. It was a get together of the team every week in Belfast. New people, we just zoned in on them and said, look, here's the two options, or here's the options of getting the SDD. You do it, over your own time period, or you do it within a month and you get a bonus. And what you found was that when you were bringing people together, focusing on the ones who had just done it to tell their story really excited the others, and excitement built everything. So we'd quickly get them to do a post on Facebook, which broke the ice for their friends and family. And then very quickly we just did in-homes or launch nights or launch parties, or we called them whatever each person was comfortable with. And we just did them, several of them every night of the week. So, and eventually then that just became the thing across the team. So, and then the last thing was, which is probably the most important of everything, we made a huge point of meeting every single distributor within the team and starting to form a relationship really quickly. And I think, when you look at our business as a whole in Ireland, sometimes you probably think it could move a little bit quicker if we weren't so focused on forming those relationships in terms of, we do quite a bit of travel. We're trying to cut down on that now, but in those early stages, we did an awful lot of travel. And the point was that wherever we had somebody new, we made sure to get that face-to-face relationship and really build it from there. And once we did that, I think that's what drove on so many people, and we had a lot of success getting people to STD.
So that's fascinating that you used to have like a team training, but it was more like a team social, team get together every week. Where was that, in Dublin or in Belfast, or?
Yeah, anywhere we had people. So we had one in Belfast, specifically with regards to my business, we had one in Belfast and we had one in Donegal, because at that stage, Mary and Seamus were starting out with the Sculpt movement, and so we had one there as well. And then as we started a team in Dublin, we did one there. But it was like, it was all focused on STD, and it was all focused on new people or people who had just recently started, and really just bouncing ideas off each other and so on. And again, the funny thing is, every time that we complicated it, things slowed down. When we keep it fun and keep it simple, things just speeded up. So, and the other great help was, I guess we were starting to get, we were getting success in bringing people through to STD, but we also, because we had different people in different areas, and all of us leaders, I guess, became so familiar with all those people, we also had a kind of a friendly rivalry going between the different areas. So some areas would think that that other people had, some sort of secret or whatever, and we would play them off against each other in a very friendly and fun way. But it worked really well because it drove the whole team forward then. So yeah, on a weekly basis, last for an hour, and that was really it.
And what sort of stuff would you cover in that? I mean, what is it, at a bar or someone's home, and what would be the format of it, Donal? That sort of
well, as the numbers got bigger, we actually rented hotel rooms, and we've gone away from that a little bit slightly now and keep it a little more informal. But what we would cover was, it was always open to bring new people. So it was always open for potentials for the product and potentials for the business. And we would do maybe 10 or 15 minutes on the product, 10 or 15 minutes on the business and the potential of the business, and then finish with maybe 10 or 15 minutes on how to get started, which was the STD. And get some stories from the room and zone in on people who had just got to STD. And that was basically it. It was extremely informal, but very, very effective, because you could see that people, after certainly their first month within the business, they understood the system, but more importantly, they were getting great confidence by just bouncing off other people all the time. So it wasn't a training as such. It was more it was more just bringing people together and letting them connect, even though they were all in different lines.
Cool. No, that's really, really interesting. I love that format. I love the business, of talking to people about how to get started. That's great. So, Donal, I mean, there you are. You're PMD, and I'm just going to say to everyone that at 9 o'clock, which is just in a few minutes' time, we're going to do a series of questions. So, if you've got any questions that you want to ask Donal, would you put them on the chat box down the bottom, on the bottom bar, and then we'll go through those. So, Donal, it'd be fascinating for you just to tell us, as we finish up this part of the call, what are your 5 top tips that you would give someone? Because there you are, very, very successful. You've cracked it. What would you tell someone as a tip? 5 tips, if you've got them.
Yeah, I would say number one is to know if for somebody who's in the business for a while, we'll say, or from something more than a month anyway, to know exactly what you want from the business, because then that removes what I would see as the burden of uncertainty, that you're not, people get very excited about the business, and that's great because that's what helps you build, but knowing exactly what you want from it. For me, very quickly or very early on, I knew I wanted a big business, and I was quite, adamant that was going to happen. For other people, it might be, that they want to earn 200 or 400 extra per month, but knowing what that is. So in other words, know what success looks like to you, and don't compare your success to somebody else's. Because if you're somebody who wants to do this very much part-time, you want to earn an extra 400 or 500 per month, well, then you can't compare your success to somebody who's got completely different goals. So knowing exactly what you want, I think, is a big one. Secondly, your attitude towards it. So it should be one of, it took me a long time to build this up, but what I found was the more I got out and met people and talked about it, my attitude became one of absolute belief and confidence. And so I was going into one-to-ones with people with absolute confidence that it didn't matter if they said yes or no, or, it was irrelevant because I was on to the next person. So, knowing that you're the only variable in this whole thing. We have the same product, we have the same marketing plan, and we have the same, business support, regardless of where you are in the world. So you're the only variable. So have absolute confidence that if you know where you're going to make it happen. I guess next is one that's really important to us, and that would be get to know your team as well as you possibly can in terms of forming those relationships. You cannot be sitting down one-to-one with people. I know as your team gets bigger, it can be hard to do, but really getting to know your team and getting to find out what they want will give you a huge insight into, what way, how far you can push them, if push is the right word, but how far you can encourage them to go, and so on. So, sometimes we assume that everybody wants to fast track, and that's not the case. So getting to know them and getting to know their background and so on is hugely important. And next, I guess, would be events and getting your team to events. And the big one for me in events is, I think sometimes the point is lost why events build your business. That old cliche, I guess, within Juice Plus is that events build your business. They definitely do, but I think the point gets lost that it's between the events is when you build your business, which is why that they're spread out normally by just 2 or 3 or 4 months. But it's when you go to those events and get your inspiration and your information of how others are doing it and so on, all the hints and tips. It's the 3 months between events to build your business. And the reason that events build your business is set your goals to the event. So the big one would be to get to every single event, regardless of what it is or where it is. And you'll look back in time and know that you're or certainly in my case, all I need after 3 years of not having huge success, the great thing was I went to everything, so that when I found people that were ready to move with me, so i.e. Kieran in the beginning, I knew exactly what to do with them because I had been to every single event. And I guess the last one then would be to have loads of fun. And I know that's an obvious one that people throw out there all the time, but if you get to know your team really well, then you're in it's going to be very easy to have fun. You don't need to come up with new and exciting ways to do it. Just being in people's presence and hanging out, you're going to have lots of fun. But the most important thing about that fun element is not to overtrain people. And if it's a mistake I made a couple of years ago now, whereby I felt as though we needed to train more people. We needed to do more training the bigger the team got. Whereas actually, I now realize people only need the basics. And if they're excited by it, and if they want to drive on to another level, they'll come to you and let you know what extra training they need. So I guess the message there would be, don't overtrain people and keep it very fun and easygoing and informal. So I guess there's nothing new in my tips than anybody else's, but it's just yeah, I guess that would be the 5.
Brilliant. Okay, fantastic, Donald. Right, well, look, we're coming up to 9 o'clock now, so we have got already a few questions that are coming up. So I'm just going to go into those now. And yeah, okay, so in no particular order, Sue Worrell asks you, Sue Worrell NMD, have you had any successful frontline or team distributors from social media?
From social media, was it, James?
Yeah, from social media. Have you had any successful frontline distributors or team members from social media?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have, and one of the interesting things about social media is that when I said to people that I wasn't very active on social media, I also realized it was a huge part of our business. So I also had to find people who were active on social media and not miss out on that huge audience, I guess. And so rather than try and make myself an expert in social media, I certainly encouraged all of the team to use it as much as I could, and I think we've benefited from that massively. So yeah, and as time went by, different people contacted me on social media, and I've certainly had success there. It's just that it wasn't an area that I put most of my time into in the beginning. But if you look at other elements of our team, they've had massive success on social media. So I think that has worked out quite well for me. So it's a kind of I remember we had a team meeting at one point, and my dad made the point that some of the older generation, if we could put it that way, said to him, it's okay for younger people because they're into social media. And he said, well, if that's the case, then just go out and find younger people who are into social media. So it was a very simple solution, but a very practical one. And I think I benefited from that as well.
And when you would speak to someone about who's very active on social media, is there any particular pitch that you would give them, or any particular hook that you would give them that would really get them to be excited about Juice Plus and social media? Or would you just talk more generally about the product? And
yeah, I talk more generally about the product, but in showing somebody how to build a business, I'd show them that I would say to them that we use several different things. So social media being probably the biggest one at the minute, but we also do a lot of launch nights and things like that get you off the mark really, really quickly and get your first few orders very quickly. We do a lot of events, and we also get out and about meeting people in one-to-ones and so on, and explain you don't need presentations, you don't need any of the formalities, you just need to get out and chat to people, and whatever area you're comfortable in. If I could throw in a sneaky 6 tip rather than 5, one of them would be know what you're good at and use that to your advantage. So starting a new person, I find out where they're most comfortable, and I can develop the other areas as we go along, but get them working in the area they're comfortable in very quickly. So if that's social media, then brilliant. And the only other thing I would do in social media is then point them in the direction of people who are good and say, take what you like of this that is good, but make it personal to you, and that's as complicated as it gets. So it's even though I haven't been hugely I guess active in social media, I don't find it hard to get people started in social media, because I just say, here are 4 or 5 people that I think are very good at it. Take what you think is good, follow what they're doing, but just make it personal to you, and that's usually it.
Yeah. Donald, fascinating. You were talking about when you were in Belfast and you were talking to people, sometimes you were talking to people that you didn't know. And you seemed to have a very interesting approach to say to people, I wonder if I could have your help. I need your help. Can you talk us through a little bit more about how you would talk to people that you didn't know from that angle? Because it obviously worked for you very well.
Yeah, it was very much an indirect approach, whereby I would say, started a new business. I'm very excited by it. We're growing really, really quickly, but we've only just launched in Belfast. Or if I was in Dublin, I would say we've only just launched in Dublin. Or so I made it. I showed my excitement, and said, I'd love to take you through it, or I'd love to show you what it is, or I'd love to get a coffee, or love to get a drink, or whatever it happened to be. And for the first while, I was very good at organizing those meetings, but I wasn't very good in delivering them because I made it too formal with a laptop and a slideshow. Once I got rid of that and made it more about, here's why I'm so excited about it, very quickly then, people became interested themselves. And rarely did I ever have some of those meetings where that person didn't at least, send me on a couple of names or a couple of ideas or something like that. And that really got the ball rolling. And the other area I then focused on was, once I found somebody who wanted to join, well, then I did loads and loads of one-to-ones with them, knowing that, they may or may not last long term. So I didn't feel I had a warm market in Belfast, but when I found somebody, I got into their warm market very quickly. And so, in some regards, people would say you don't need to go doing one-to-ones with people. Well, I did a lot of them because I wanted to make sure I utilized their warm market.
Yeah, and what would you say to people when someone says, "Yeah, that sounds really interesting"? What would you sit down and say to them to pique their interest, where they go, "Right, Donald, that's really, really interesting"?
Okay, well then I would say that I was looking for. I said there's certain types of people I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody who wants to earn some extra money. We start out following our system. You'll earn 500 to 600 in your first month, and after that you can either increase that or decrease it. It's flexible and up to the person. And the type of person I'm looking for is somebody who's confident, a people person, but who's ambitious. And so I guess most of us think we're all of those things. So it became more attractive to them. So I always talked about the third party person I was looking for, rather than forcing it on them. But I did find that many of them then subsequently joined the business. So yeah, it was focusing it on the income of it, but also the opportunity, because there wasn't much happening at the minute. And then lastly, just talking about, the type of person that I wanted. And very often I would say, I kind of to get that meeting again, I would contact somebody, or I would come across them through work or whatever, and I would say, started a new business. If I told you the type of person I'm looking for, you might have a thinking, who would you come back to? And usually when you mention those two or three things, that got them interested enough to have a meeting at least.
What would be the conclusion of a one-to-one? How would you conclude it after you've sat down with someone, you've spoken about earning 500 to 600 a month and the type of people that you're looking for, and they say, "Look, this looks really interesting." What would be the next step to sort of, in a sense, get them to say, "Right, I want to do this"?
Yeah, well, at that time we were running a lot of events or those get-togethers in Belfast. So I found bringing them to that was a great one. So I would always say, well, we always had it scheduled in advance. So I would say, for instance, next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, come along. If you know somebody else that would be interested, bring them along, and just getting one or two people there every week through those one-to-ones was really good. If not, when I would leave those one-to-ones, I would leave it a few days, put it into my diary, and just follow up with them and say, "Listen, with people starting all the time, I'm only starting 2 people this month. Have you had a chance to think about it again, or whatever?" And very often those people join themselves. So the conclusion very much was not a formal one, but there was an understanding I was going to follow up with them in some shape or form.
Yeah. And would you send them videos and links to your website, or not so much?
Yes. And again, what I found just through trial and error was that less is more. In the early stages, I would send somebody a link to, or maybe send them an email, but I would cover absolutely everything rather than, and I probably sent too much. So in the end, I would do it to suit the person. If I thought that person was ambitious and so on, sometimes I would say, well, I'm looking for somebody to partner with me, and I only focus on one person at a time, and if you like, pitch it that way. If I thought the person was somebody who's already in business, so we'll say, the beauty industry is a huge one, obviously, for all of us at the minute, I would say, I'm looking for somebody who wants to retail it and not necessarily get into the whole team building thing. So I would pitch it towards each individual person. And so the information that I would follow up with would be geared towards those, if you know what I mean.
So, Donal, I didn't ask you this question before, but you're PMD, and I think your wife has just gone quite a high senior position as well. Is that correct? Or
no, not yet. My sister.
Oh, your sister?
Yeah.
What's your sister gone to?
QMD last month.
Wow. Is that through you?
She's frontline to me, yes. Yeah.
Very good. That's
Yeah.
excellent.
So, yeah, it's
And was
really,
she like you? Obviously, she was like you initially, looking at it, not quite sure, and then decided to go for it.
yeah, exactly, for quite a while. But she's extremely busy with, she's a teacher and she plays a lot of Gaelic football and a lot of other things. She's a coach for swimming and things like that. So, very, very similar to me, in fact, that she, looking at it for quite a while, she would see it as something she can build up over a period of time, and then it gives her some options in terms of career and so on. But more recently, has built a lot of momentum. So is really capitalizing on that now.
Fantastic. Well, look, we're just going to be finishing up now because we're nearly right up to 9:15. But I have to say, this has
Yeah.
been a really, really fascinating call, and I knew it would be because it's packed full of amazing tips. But I think perhaps the question I most want to ask you now at the end is looking to the future. What are you most excited about as you think about the future with Juice Plus? What's the thing that really excites you the most?
I think the biggest thing is that you hear it all the time, people saying we're just getting started. And I honestly think that none of us fully appreciate exactly how big Juice Plus is going to get. I do believe 100% that we are only getting started, but it's a kind of a throwaway comment sometimes, whereas actually when you sit and think about it, it's sometimes a little overwhelming where Juice Plus can go. The market is 100% of people, and the need for Juice Plus is only getting greater, not less. So you never have to worry about saturation or anything like that. But I think the biggest thing at the moment for us is we've had this amazing growth all across, the kick-started in the UK, and then here in Ireland we capitalized on that, and the wave seems to have gone all over Europe now. And what I think about, in particular, Ireland and the UK at the minute is we have learned so much over the last 2 to 3, maybe 4 years from that huge growth, that we now are starting to figure out really, really clearly what exactly works and how it works best, and how best to use social media and things like that to our advantage. And so the excitement for me is that we are, the group of distributors that are involved with Juice Plus right now are at the very, very beginning. Even though it's 20 something years old, we are at the very beginning of probably the most exciting time that the company are ever going to have. And it's a privilege to be involved now, because now we have all the answers of what we need to do, whether it be social media or whether it be, the product getting better and better, and the support for the product in terms of the research and the additional products coming. I honestly, truly believe that none of us realize how big the opportunity is. And if we did, we'd be getting very, very busy over the next short number of months, which I intend doing with some of us over here. So I'm sure you guys in the UK are the same.
We are. And then, Donal, the final question. You've been working this part-time. How much do you think you've earned since you started with Juice Plus?
Oh, God, I've never actually thought about it, but I've certainly collected all of the bonuses, so that's good. And
so how much would that be? That's how much.
That was the old bonus system. So in sterling, that was it like 108,000 or something like that?
€108,000 in bonuses.
Yeah, and I don't know, over the period of time, probably, I don't know, maybe another 200,000 or 300,000, I suppose. I've never actually thought about it, to be quite honest with you, but
that's absolutely staggering. I mean, and how long have you been going for?
Probably growth-wise, for this would be our 4th year. And I was there for a few years before that, not making a lot of money, but over that period of time, or for growth-wise, about 4 years.
Wow.
I'd put it this way: I've earned a hell of a lot more in Juice Plus than I did in my other job or the other different things that I do. I now, I was in a job that I liked, but was very, very stressful. There was a lot of time needed for it and so on. And I've reduced my hours significantly in that job, but I would never give it up, even though I earn a fraction of what I earn in Juice Plus in that job now. But I wouldn't give it up, because I've now come to love that job, because I just love being involved in business. And that's really where the the huge advantage, that to be able to go to work every day and love what you do, because you've the flexibility of, if you ever wanted to give it up, you just give it up.
Yeah.
Juice Plus is given.
Amazing. Donal, it's been an absolute pleasure to be speaking to you tonight, and thank you so much for taking your time. I know you're very, very busy with the family and everything and your work, and we can't tell you how much we appreciate it. It's just been amazing having you on tonight.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thank you very, very much indeed. And we recorded tonight, and we'll get that over to you.
Brilliant.
Okay, and
thank you very much, James.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye for now. Bye.